Hey guys, happy Friday to everybody who's signing in. And we're running live Facebook on both YouTube and well, live on both Facebook and YouTube today. And apologies for getting started a little later than expected. We had some technical issues, and today is actually, well, it's not a national holiday. Yesterday was a national holiday in Denmark. So that means that pretty much everybody out here at TC has taken today off, so they could get a nice long weekend starting on Wednesday after work. But luckily, we are a few people here. There's me, there's James. You can't see him, but he's sitting kind of in hiding over here. Come say hi, James. There you go. Hi. Monitoring the questions and everything. How early is it in the States now, Jerry? I was wondering. And hey, on Facebook over there. And Guy is saying, nice Strat. Yeah, it's a really cool Strat, actually. Incredibly light. And it's not a real Strat. Apologies to Fender, but it's a Hansen, Danish-made thing. And it's not brand new anymore, but it actually looked more or less like that when we got it. So it's relict, which we like. And it's a mahogany one, but still really, really light. Sounds really good too. You can't see that on the video screen here, but down here is the pedal board that we're giving away. So this is just a reminder that if you want to have a chance to win this really cool board, you can see the video on YouTube. It's Pete Thorne and me building it. And we're giving it away, I think sometime next week. Is it Friday or something?
Monday.
Maybe so it's soon.
Take the photo?
Yeah, you can do that. So at least on Facebook now, you can actually see the board in all its glory. A little bit more. That's wrong. There you maybe go a little bit further down. There it is. I think. Yeah, there it is. It's right. Yep. Cool. So there it is. So we're giving it away, and we're just talking there. Technical difficulties. So hey, Pavel. Elliot, 3:14 a.m. in California. Wow. You're either up really early or maybe more likely, haven't gone to bed yet. In any case, thanks so much for joining us at this crazy hour. We have guys from Nashville as well. Love Nashville. Still trying to see if I can get to Summerland this year. Fingers crossed that I can get it into my schedule. So Drag, if you're coming to Summerland, maybe, just maybe, I'll be there. So in any case, getting back to the pedal board here, you can win it, and it actually doesn't require very much. All you have to do is follow the TC Electronic YouTube channel, and also follow Pete Thorne's channel. In any case, if you guys have, tuned in here, chances are you're following the TC one already, so you know what you're in for. With that one, some product stuff, some weird stuff, sometimes some good guitar playing, sometimes like today, maybe not so much. And if you don't follow Pete's channel already, there's a 100% chance that you'll hear amazing guitar playing, absolutely killer tones, and just, you know, awesome demos of cool products and tips and tricks. So I can highly recommend that. So the easy thing is, if you follow both our YouTube channels, you're basically in the running automatically, and we'll pick a lucky winner on Monday. And as I said before, we were just talking about this board, and it sounds really, really good, actually. Not to toot our own horns, but it's a really cool board, and it's a really cool board for a number of different applications. There's, you know, with its selection of drives and the modulation stuff and time-based effects, it's a cool little board for that, you know, will pretty much get you through any kind of, you know, run-of-the-mill kind of gig, unless you have some really specific things you have to have on your board. So with that said, as usual, you know, what we're going to do today is basically I'll see if I can answer some questions, and if you don't have any, then I'll just ramble for hours on end, or until we decide that it's weekend and we go home. And it's a little earlier than usual here today, so I don't think I'll be drinking beer today, but so be it. Maybe coffee. I didn't bring any. And I'll just remove this thing here. There we go. Now I can see the comments over on the YouTube channel as well. And Lars Frederiksen joined us. He's one of the engineers from CC. I don't know if he's at work today. I haven't seen him. Yeah. He is. Oh, so he's right next door. Alec Krebs is saying nothing beats the 1140, the 1210, and the 2290. Very true. Very true indeed. Those are some cool products. I remember getting at 1140 back in the day. Pretty much every guitar player in Aarhus, which is where we're located, had to get one of those 1140s, and nobody understood how to use it back then. We're basically just kids, right? So a parametric EQ, you could sort of understand the graphic ones with all the faders, and you can kind of go, oh, I like it to be kind of like this if you're a metal guy. But the parametric one was a little bit more tricky. So TC Electronic is asking if I want a sandwich. I already had a sandwich. Thank you very much. So let's go. Aris Perpel, sorry if I can't pronounce the name. Perperoglu, I think, is asking, can you suggest a light combo for gigging in small places, sort of like a blues sound, good with pedals? Oh man, there's so many. Obviously, working for TC, there is Lars. Hi. So working for TC, which is owned by Music Group, we have in our, you know, our roster of brands also Bugera. And if you're looking for something on the tone conscious side of things, sorry, not tone, but also tone, but price as well, I can highly recommend some of those amps. I really like the G20, little head and cap. Obviously, it's not a combo. The V20 and the V55 is also really good for just like a basic clean platform to use with pedals. Other stuff, you know, you can't go wrong with just like a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe. They sound really good. Personally, I use for like low wattage combo kind of thing, I use an Imperial, Tone King Imperial, which is sort of like a Fender Deluxe reverby kind of thing that also has a tweet channel that you can almost dial in to get semi-martially. I mainly use it as just as a, you know, as a good clean platform, and I really dig that amp. But to be honest, there's so many good amps out there today. I think the main trick is kind of figuring out, you know, what's your wallet in terms of how much money can you afford to spend, and do you want to spend on this? And there are so many options, again, depending on the style of amp you want, because, you know, there are good Marshally clean sounds, there are good Voxy kind of clean sounds, and there's definitely also a lot of good Fendery clean sounds. So we have Preben Eikos, sounds like a Norwegian name, am I right? Saying, good afternoon, we're a couple of buddies who want to take a trip to Denmark to visit TC. You're always more than welcome. Anybody who happens to be in the neighborhood of the TC headquarters, which is located, as I said before, in Aarhus, Denmark, are more than welcome to drop by. So obviously, best hours would be, well, any day from Monday to Friday is good. And hours wise, if you're there between, drop in between 9 and 4, there's definitely somebody there for sure. Not saying that you couldn't come at other times as well, but that will probably need to be arranged a little bit more. So Rune, Danish name, is asking, pedal power question. My pedal will run on both 9 volt and 12 volt. Will there be any difference in the sound? For TC pedals, no. We've designed them in such a way that they run equally fine on 9 volt and 12 volt, but it doesn't make a difference to the sound. So they will sound exactly the same regardless, with one exception. If you own any of the older Nova pedals, basically all the newer TC pedals are designed to run on 9 volt, but will run on 12 volt as well. On the older Nova pedals, it's the other way around. So they're basically designed to run on 12 volt, but will run on 9 volt as well. The difference here is that if you run one of the Nova pedals on 9 volt, you will have less headroom. And for those of you who don't know what headroom is, it's basically the amount of level you can put into the pedal without it starting to clip or distort a little bit, and typically not in a very pleasant way. So, for example, if you just plugged, say, like a regular Strat or even a Les Paul or something into the pedal, you'll be fine. But if you, for example, if you took a Nova pedal and ran it at 9 volt and had it in the loop of an amp with a line level effect loop, like, for example, the old custom audio OD100 amps are really, really hot. There are other ones as well. Some of the Mesa Boogie ones are hot as well. You might get into trouble with clipping. So we've designed those to actually increase the headroom, so the maximum amount of level you can get into the pedal if you increase the voltage. That is not the case with the newer pedals. Those are done in a different way. So for the really nerdy ones out there, I can try to explain that. So the headroom thing basically is in relation to the mainly in relation to the AD converter. So obviously for all our digital pedals, we have to convert the signal from analog to digital. And typically what we do on all the mix effects, like delays and reverbs and stuff, is we take the dry signal and we pass that straight through the pedal. We don't convert that, but we do convert we take a copy of the dry signal and convert that, and then we create the wet signal, the delays or the reverbs based on that. Yes, please. I would like to have some coffee. Triple espresso, please. So we take dry signal and convert it. Well, we take a copy of the dry signal and convert it. And when you do that, the AD converter is basically the one that kind of determines how much signal it can accept before it starts sounding nasty. And what we do on the newer pedals is that we actually have a stereo converter, and we put the two stereo, we put the input levels different on both of them, so that you double the amount of headroom you have in a very neat and clever way. So that basically ensures that pretty much regardless of whatever kind of amp effect loop you plug one of the newer TonePrint pedals into, you'll be fine with the headroom. So let's see. Brian Smith has asked, do we have a pedal similar to the Soul Food? Not at the moment, no. We have some pedals that sound sort of similar, but not exactly similar. So in case you guys don't know, the Soul Food is an overdrive pedal from Electro-Harmonix. And interestingly about the Soul Food is that it's actually designed to sound sort of like a Klon Centaur, which is this extremely rare and very expensive boutique pedal, one of the first ones ever made. I remember, looking at the advertisement for it in Guitar Player magazine back in the late 80s, and back then it was like $300, which was insane for a pedal back then, because most guys were using tube screamers or Boss Super Overdrives or something like that, which was nowhere near that price. So $300 for an Overdrive was crazy. And nowadays, because the guy, and the name eludes me right now, see if I can remember what the builder's name is. But in any case, he stopped making them, which obviously made everybody want them even more. So now there's a whole market of guys doing copies or clones or recreations or modified versions of Klon Centaurs, typically called clones. And the Soul Food is one of them. And it's a really good pedal. It sounds really good in general, and in general for the price, because like a real Klon Centaur will easily set you back at least $1,000, maybe even more, which is crazy money for a pedal. It's a good pedal, but honestly, for me, I wouldn't spend that much money on a pedal. And the other thing is that there are really plenty of other drives out there. Do they sound exactly the same as a real one? I don't know. That's always up for debate. The question is more, does the real ones really sound better, or is it just a little different? And obviously, that one being the real one and the most expensive one, then typically you prefer that if they sound different. But in a blind test, I don't know. But there are plenty of companies making good clone clones. So Electro-Harmonix is one with the Soul Food. Wampler, my good buddies, make an amazing one called the Tunnels, and it's a tiny little one. So that's cool. Arc Effects make a really good one that I have at home as well and really like. Oh, nice. I have coffee. Thanks.
No worries.
Let's see, what do we have? Kruy is asking why the Rottweiler was obsolete. Well, two things really. To be honest, it didn't sell really well. And the other part of that is it didn't sound that good either, to be honest. It wasn't the proudest moment of our pedal building pedigree, I guess. It's an okay pedal, but I think if I had to do it again, I would have made the gain range a little bit more dramatic. It basically goes from crazy distorted to crazier distorted. And it would have been nice to have a little bit more range for different sounds. So what else do we have? The difference between the Corona and the Third Dimension, apart from versatility, it's two very different beasts. The Third Dimension, first of all, obviously you have the push buttons. It's an analog delay. An analog chorus was what I tried to say. The Third Dimension is the Corona is digital, and it's designed in a way that makes for a lot of really cool subtle effects, but maybe not some of the more extreme chorusing that you can get with the Corona, for example. So it's a matter of taste. In terms of how they're done, it couldn't be more different. Digital, analog, push buttons versus like crazy TonePrint versatility. But the Third Dimension is a really cool sound, and as much as I'd love to say that you can get 100% there with a Corona and the TonePrint editor, you probably can't. You can get fairly close, but there are some things inherent in the circuit that's tough to emulate. And the thing with a lot of these old choruses actually is that the reason why they sound the way they do is that they don't only, once you turn them on, they don't only impart, coloration to the wet part of the signal. They also impart coloration to the dry part of the signal, which is something we try to avoid on our digital pedals. But because, as I said before, we basically don't meddle with the dry sound at all, even when you turn the pedal on. And that's definitely not the case with a lot of older analog stuff. So the Third Dimension being one of those guys, it really changes your overall sound. If you were to hear just the dry signal once you turn on a Third Dimension, it's pretty different, and that's part of the coolness of the sound. But we can mess with that on the Corona by purpose. We have Wally from the Bronx. That's cool. So Joran is asking a cool question. What's the first step to designing a pedal? Well, the first step is always an idea. So I can come with an example, being the original Polytune pedal. So when every idea and every pedal starts differently. It's not the same every time. So for the Polytune pedal, one of the engineers had this idea for a long time that he thought he might be able to do a polyphonic tuner. And he, that happens quite a lot, that you have one of the engineers go like, I think I have this cool technology that, could we use that for something? And then, they'll typically go to me if it's guitar related, or they'll go to my colleague Thomas if it's more plug-in, computer recording or broadcast related. But in this case, he came to me and basically talked about this idea he had. And that's how it started. And typically, if you come up with really crazy stuff like that nobody has done before, we'll try to do some kind of program on a computer, where we basically try to see if we can create the algorithm. And that took him something like 3 days to actually do. And it was basically, looked like a plug-in on a computer. And you basically had a waveform for the tuning of each string. And once that worked, we were like ecstatic because we thought it was so cool. So obviously we wanted to get started right away. And with that 3 day kind of, it took 3 days. We can do this fast. But then suddenly, reality hits that you have to check this with like millions of guitars to make sure that it works across, a broad spectrum of different guitars. And you also have to come up with a way that the UI works, because, you can't, you couldn't have a computer on the floor. So you have to make something a little smaller. And it took quite a few different ideas. Someday we have a big box of different things that are like, sketches and prototypes of some of the earlier pedals. And you'd be amazed at how Polytune originally looked, how some of the TonePrint pedals looked in their kind of first initial stage. But at some point, going from idea and you start kind of building it, you go into like real engineering. You have to kind of crystallize what the product is, and then it's groundwork and tuning and testing and stuff like that. So starting a product for us, especially if it's something new, entirely new that we haven't done before, always starts with an idea, and then it starts with some kind of prototype on a computer. We're actually working on a new product I can't talk about right now that's also in this kind of idea. This would be cool. Nobody has done this before, kind of thing that I'm really excited about. And right now it's also living its own secret life on a computer where I can go in and test it and see how it's working. And that product is actually nothing like the Polytune, but it's sort of the same in that sense that we have to figure out what the UI looks and stuff like that, because it's something nobody has done before. So there are no rules. It's like if you make a delay pedal, you pretty much know beforehand that it's like, okay, we got to have a delay time knob, we got to have a effects level knob, we got to have a feedback knob. Those are the three must-haves. And then you can always start throwing in extra stuff. But there's already some established rules for how a delay pedal or an overdrive pedal looks. When you do something entirely new, suddenly everything opens up. So that was a really long answer. Jim Alacy is saying, if you could scrap one pedal from any manufacturer and redesign it from scratch, which one would you do? That's a good question. I was thinking about that the other day, and now obviously I can't remember which pedal it was. There are quite a few ones out there where I go like, man, they do some amazing stuff, but it's just, don't want to tread on anybody's toes. But if they've only done it in such a way instead, I think one example would be, I don't know if you guys remember, but some years ago, Digitech made this pedal called the Ice Stump, and it came out not that long after the TonePrint pedals came out, and we were like, oh shit, maybe this is like big competition. But at least personally for me, and apologies to anybody out there who actually happens to own an Ice Stump, the way they did it was kind of weird, at least in my mind, which is basically, it was a blank pedal that could be anything at all, but you had to buy the different algorithms. So it's like, oh, and I can't remember how much it was, but let's say it's just like, $10 gets you like a digital emulation of a tube screamer. Or $10 gives you like an emulation of a Boss CE2 or something like that, which to me seemed kind of weird, because if I'm in the market for a drive pedal, I'd probably just buy a drive pedal. So if you want to go down that more flexible route, which is obviously what we do to a certain degree with the TonePrint stuff, I always felt that, you have to, first of all, you have to offer something that is more than just an emulation of a product that's already existing, and that you can buy for roughly the same amount of money as the emulation. And the other thing is that I think that you have to make it, that part of it has to be free of charge. But that's just me. So that's one example. We have Savvy from Seoul, far away. Graugård is saying the soul food is not good. I do like the soul food, but the Tumnus is really good as well. So, definitely. Robbie Rose is saying Orange just released the Olmec pedal, so you can mix in plugins to a library. Yes, I know. Actually, I've known about that product for a couple of years, because I know Danny Gomez, the guy who designed it, and is working with Orange to sell it basically under their brand. It's a really cool pedal. We don't have any immediate plans to do something like that. I think the tricky part about stuff like that is that you really gotta. It's for the more adventurous types. And as cool as I think the whole idea is, I'm not sure the world is kind of ready for that. But anybody out there who happens to buy one of the new 2290 plugins, I'd love to hear that going through the Olmec if you own both. That would be cool. So you should upload a video of that. I know we sent Danny one to try that out as well. So hopefully you can see that. But it's a really cool idea. So over here on Facebook, we have Paolo saying, do we have any endorsement program for small bands or solo artists? And if yes, how can we contact you? We do. To be honest, we don't have a program. We're the unorganized Danish bunch here. So it's not like there's like this specific form and all these criteria that you have to fulfill. In essence, any kind of endorsement is kind of like it's hopefully some kind of agreement that is to the benefit of both the artist and to us as a company. So obviously we love to support both big famous artists, but also upcoming artists as well. And the way to contact us is, I think the easiest way would be, and James is probably going to cringe now, but say is to write on our Facebook, or just mail at info@tcelectronic.com, because we do have an artist relations guy, but we don't want to drown him in requests. He's already getting tons and tons of them. One word of it, but he will get them eventually. But maybe we'll do a little bit of like a weed out. Otherwise, he's he won't emerge from his mail pile. But just a word of advice to all you guys out there who would like to get endorsed in some way or another, is this: we generally like to endorse people who has some sort of artistic thing to say. So that could be, you play amazing, or you write amazing music, or you have a good following on some sort of social media channel. And the other thing is that in general, we don't like to endorse people who just want stuff. So, writing us saying, hey, I play amazing and I have 1 million Facebook followers. Can you can't have 1 million Facebook followers, YouTube followers. Or maybe you can, I don't know. Or you can if you have
not there yet.
Not yet. In any case, if you write that and you just say, and can you please send me some stuff, you probably won't get taken into consideration, because what we like to do is that we like to work with people who actually know what they want, in the sense that if it's much better if you say, you know, I think you guys make awesome pedals and I really need a delay pedal for this particular purpose. I would like to get considered to be endorsed for that pedal or for this number of pedals. But the general just I want stuff typically don't fly, because it doesn't seem very serious. Like, you know, yeah, I'd go for a G system, or I'd go for a, you know, a clip-on tune. It doesn't really matter as long as I get something. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that it would also be extremely helpful if you would put in some links and stuff to the things that you think represent you best. Maybe it's a YouTube video of your playing. Maybe it's a link to your Facebook with your thousands of followers. Maybe it's, you know, a link to your band that has like tons of plays on Spotify, or, you know, maybe it's just, you know, your YouTube channel with only a few followers, but some amazing videos that you do, either of demos or playing or music, whatever. Because we get so many requests that to be honest, we rarely spend time if we have to kind of dig through all the information ourselves. So it's just, you know, you write your name and we have to kind of search and find stuff. It's really helpful to get some links to what you think represent you the best, and maybe also write a little blurb about why we should consider you, what you can do for the brand. You know, you pretty much know what we'll do for you. You'll get some stuff, either at discount or for free, and a lot of exposure. So it's a two-way street, I guess. So hope that helps. Let's see. Oh, Lucas has a cool idea. Will you make some fan pedal contest, for example, where fans submit cool artwork and the best artwork will feature a limited edition of one of your pedals? That's a pretty good idea. We actually have thought about something like that for a while. The trick is that, you know, to do that, we could do it on a limited pedal that we already had. That would actually be kind of fun. We also talked about doing it on new pedals. The problem is that typically the artwork has to be released in such good time that if we did that, we basically have to tell everybody what we're working on, you know, at least half a year, typically even more, before the pedal is actually released, which we don't always like to do, because it kind of sets some expectations of when products are coming out that we not always can fulfill. So, but that's a cool idea. Maybe we should work on that.
I think it's a really cool idea. Yeah, absolutely.
Tommy, hey, Tommy, is that you? If it is, then hi. I think I still owe you a call, if it is you. Multi-pedal with flashback and Hall of Fame would be amazing. Yeah, that would be cool. We might need to talk. It is you. Good to talk again. It's been a while. Are you guys coming to Europe soon to play? So I think we should have a call. We might be working on something. That's all I can say here in this very public forum. So let's see here. Pedals Fusion. Hey, it's Stefan. How's it going? So Ardian is saying, could you make an app to store our TonePrints on Android? We're working on it, to be honest. So basically, some of you might have already seen some of the things we've been posting about working on a new TonePrint app, which is at beta stage now, and I think we're actually submitting, or just have submitted a new beta today. So it's getting near completion, which is really exciting because we spent a lot of time on it. And to be honest, the last version we had, and the one that's, you know, online on the App Store and stuff like that right now, is not perfect by any means. Not saying that the next version will be perfect, but it's definitely going to be closer to perfect than the old version. One of the tricky things with Android is that for basically, without going into too much detail, the whole TonePrint protocol is running on MIDI. And MIDI support on Android devices has been a little lacking, to say the least. They're starting to get there now, but we've deliberately waited doing that because, basically the platform hasn't really been ready to do some of the stuff we need to do. So in this next version, there won't be a TonePrint editor for Android, but we will definitely. We have it on the table. It's something we really want to do, and I think, as Android users, I think that you guys can, of course, with justification, expect us to have that, hopefully in the not too far future. But the goal with one of the goals with the new app, or the new program in general, is that it's going to be one unified one that will work on both. It'll work on PC, on Mac, on iPad, on iPhone, and Android. The problem is that the editor part, because of the MIDI thing, won't work on Android yet. But you will actually, in the new version, for all you iPhone fans out there, you will be able to do editing on your iPhone if you buy a camera connection kit. And when you do that, you can, of course, also store your creations and load them in. And the new app is basically, apart from being completely rewritten from the ground up, it's also the starting point for a dedicated effort to really improve it over time. So we already have the next 3 or 4 versions lined up with things we want to put in. And I don't want to talk too much about it because, then you'll just say later on that I promised this today. But we do have a lot of really cool ideas, and it's basically now a team of 4 guys doing nothing but work on the editor, which I think is pretty cool. So we should see some improvements, some huge improvements over the next years on our platforms in general. So hopefully that answers the question. Let me see. Do you find a good question?
On Facebook, Emil, I just got the Dreamscape pedal, yet I still can't play like John Petrucci. Where do I get a refund?
You can't get a refund. Sorry, man. Yeah, playing like John is that's a tricky thing. Maybe you should go to Glen Cove in July. No, August, I think it is, to his Guitar Universe camp. It's a lot of fun, and it's a chance to up close witness how good you'll never be, at least for me personally. Yeah, John is amazing. There's nothing else to be said about that. But hey, even if you can't play like him, with the Dreamscape, you one inkling closer to sounding like him. But yeah, he's one scary dude. Really nice scary dude though. But yeah, there you go. Let me see, what does it say here? Lastimil is asking, was there any reason why the Tube Pilot pedal has some delays between promotion and its first selling? It's still not in stock in Europe shops. I think it's a good question, and I think it's something that doesn't only apply to the Tube Pilot, it pretty much applies to all of our pedals. So let me see if I can address this in a way that you probably still will think it's a pretty bad explanation, but at least it's the truth, and it's the reason why. So I think in general, at the moment we're in a situation where we announce earlier than I would like to be honest. At the moment, I think everybody here at TC would love to basically be able to do almost the Apple thing, where you go like, here's a new thing. Oh, and you can buy it right now. The problem is, first of all, that we don't have our own stores, so it's pretty tricky to kind of control this 100%. And the other thing is that when shipping products from the Far East, it takes time. It takes actually 2 months on sea from the time where the pedal is actually ready to the point where it reaches our warehouses in Europe and in the US. And then from there, if it has to go into, say, Guitar Center, it could take up to 6 weeks after that. So it's a very long, from the point where you kind of go like, oh, everything's ready, now we can actually start selling them, to the point where they actually arrive in stores. It can be up to 3 months or more. And we try our best to kind of find a sweet spot for when it's available. But it's definitely a work in progress. And we changed a lot of things in our setup in terms of how and where we sell our products. So, you know, I think everybody here at TC wants us to be better at that, essentially, as I said before, being able to announce and then very shortly after that, having the products available. So the only thing I can say is that we're working on it, and hopefully it will be better in the future, because I completely agree that it's been too long and it's too unpredictable when things arrive. So that's on us, and we promise to try our best to make it better. Let me see, what do we have? Mateus Bonelli is saying it would be nice if we could use Mesh on Flashback 2 as a tap tempo and the whole function to turn off the pedal. It's on the original Flashback, you had this audio tapping thing that some of you guys might know. The problem when you have Mesh is that the whole Mesh idea is that you press and hold the foot switch and you change the amount of pressure, and that pretty much makes it impossible to have both that and tap tempo at the same time, because the pedal wouldn't know whether you want to press and hold to activate some sort of tap tempo functionality or whether you want to press and hold to do Mesh. And at the same time, obviously, the most important thing on the foot switch, regardless of all the wizardry we can do on the side, is that you want to make sure that you can turn the pedal on and off, and that you can do it predictably without messing it up. So in theory, you could do stuff where if you press and hold, say, for more than a second, it would turn into something, and if you press and hold, did something else, it would do, you know, the other thing. But it just makes the pedal really, really hard to use. We did try to see if we could kind of squeeze everything in there, but at the end we decided that it's, you know, playing live, typically you don't have time to think about stuff like that. You just want to, you know, you want to turn the pedal on, you want to mash it, or, you know, so we decided against it. What we did do, though, which you might not know, is that if you don't play in stereo, there's actually a workaround, because the stereo input on Flashback 2 will actually accept a TRS cable. So if you buy a small tap tempo foot switch and use a stereo patch cable to connect from the stereo input into the tap tempo switch, you can actually tap the tempo that way. The only downside is that you have to, first of all, you have to open up the editor, because you can only set the pedal up for that in the editor, but it's a global setting. Once you've done it once, it'll stay like that until you change it. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that it kills the stereo signal on the pedal, both the input and the output. So you'll be playing strictly mono when you do it. But apart from that, it works great. I've set it up like that on my personal board. So there you go. Let's see here. What do we have? Do you have anything cool, James? Or should I see if I can? There's so much stuff here, and it's whizzing by.
Maybe some of the older ones. Ooh. Someone asked about the third dimension course, since we talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
In the front end of the drives are in a loop, and then a fixed loop with reverb and delay. What do we think about modulation in the loop or in front?
I think I mean, whether it's in front or in the loop, to me, it doesn't really, it's not as important. The main thing is whether it's before or after drive.
Yeah.
So you could say if you mainly play a clean amp and use pedals for your distortion and overdrive, you know, you don't need to use the loop at all. I always, having a loop is nice if you use amp distortion, but apart from that, it's not necessary. And in general, it's nice enough to have cables running back and forth from the amp, multiple times. But that said, in my metal band, I do use the loop because the amp is set for I'm getting all my gain from amps. And if you want to add delay or reverb to your solos in that setting, you need to have a loop. Otherwise, it's going to sound like mush because there's so much gain going on. But getting back to the third dimension thing, I would say it's that with chorus in particular, whether it should be before or after distortion, it's very much a matter of taste. It's probably one of the effects I find that it'll sound different, but it'll sound good in either case. So it's more a matter of taste. I would say personally, I would typically put modulation, or not modulation in general, but at least chorus after drives, because. But again, you could say, at least for me, I rarely use modulation chorus. I rarely use chorus on drive sounds. I know some people do. If you're going for that Alex Lifeson kind of sound, there's definitely some cool stuff there with overdriven sounds and chorus at the same time. But in general, if I use chorus, I use it on clean sounds, and in that case, it doesn't really matter whether it's before or after, because you don't have any drive going on anyway. But I would, if you did do that, I would typically put it after the drive or in the loop if you use amp distortion. But that's for chorus. If we talked, say, flanging or phasing, on the other hand, I would probably put that before drive. But both of those will sound good after as well. It's just a matter of taste. It's probably because I'm getting so old that most of my tone references are the old guys from back when there weren't any amp effect loops, and people were getting most of their drive from amps anyway. So if you listen to like old Van Halen or old Hendrix or stuff like that, all of their effects were always in front of the drive. So if you're trying to get that eruption sound, or if you're trying to get like a crazy flanging sound, it's typically before distortion. So that's kind of my tonal reference. But there is definitely a case for the other thing. I find that the effect will typically sound purer if you place it afterwards. But there's some more cool interaction if you place it before. So, no rules. So Roulette is asking, can we hear some of the nether third dimension of Viscous Vibe? I don't have any of those set up today, unfortunately, but I promise next Friday we'll do a board with all the cheaper pedals, so you guys have a chance to hear that.
Because that board will have left the building.
Yes, it'll be gone, so we'll do that. Here's another cool question. It's from Northern Accent. Sounds like me. Definitely have a Northern accent. Hey Tor, is the June 60 happening? Yes, it is. I know that we kind of spilled the bean on that quite a long time ago. I think I showed it the first time, kind of sneak peek at GitCon, which was back in October or something like that last year. So quite a while ago. And what actually happened was that everybody was freaked out about it. It actually took us a little bit by surprise at how popular it was and how much people dug the sound of it. So it kind of made the rounds across the internet, and a lot of people had opinions about it, which is typically what happens on the internet. And one of the things that a lot of people asked for, because the original version we did was mono, was that it might have been mainly keyboard players. I don't know, because it's not that many guitar players who play in stereo. But a lot of people asked for it to be stereo, and we're like, oh man, we gotta, if people want that, then we should probably give it to them. So we redesigned the pedal to be stereo, and once we did that, it sounded so bad. To be honest, it sounded nothing like the first version, which I was really bummed about. But obviously, we kind of already made we already dedicated ourselves to making it stereo, so we couldn't just leave it at that. So we spent an insane amount of time figuring out how to make it sound good in stereo. And the next version we did sounded good in stereo, but the mono version sounded bad. So it actually ended up taking almost 4 months of tweaking and noodling to get it to sound great in both mono and stereo. But luckily, we are there now. It actually does sound good. So it is in development right now. I can't say exactly when it will be out, but we're working on it. And now we're not in this situation where we go like, I wonder if we can even make it sound good. It sounds, now it sounds, the stereo version sounds as good as the mono version, both in stereo and mono, and the stereo version sounds even bigger. So everything is good and it is happening. I can't say exactly when it'll be out, but it will happen at some point down the line. And it's not vaporware. We are in development with it, soon to be in production, I hope. We have a user saying a flashback tap tempo, simply press and hold from the off position will be a viable option. Not really, because when you do that right now, it goes to mesh. So you can go directly from off to meshing, which is also pretty cool. So unfortunately not. Trust me, we did spend a lot of time with this, and I know that there are always going to be somebody who thinks we should have done things a little different, and you're probably right. But in any case, that's the decision we made. We have Schneid Woods saying, do you think there would be a market for a combination of spring reverb, one delay, and a trem, or OD in one pedal? As much as I think the Flint pedal from Strymon is a really cool idea, in general, I find that I would rather have one pedal do one thing instead of lumping too much together. Because it seems like, I think sometimes when you think of, let's say you're in the market for a delay, and you have some people who are in the market for buying a new reverb, and you have these two groups. So this is the delay guys. So I just have to shut this thing off. So here are the delay guys, and here are the reverb guys. If you think that if you make a pedal that does both things, that you get that entire market, everything, it's actually, at least in my experience, not true. What you get is the little overlap in the middle. So if you imagine you saw this as two circles, the overlap in the middle would be the guys who would buy it, the guys who need both a delay and reverb. And that's typically a lot smaller market than guys who just need one and guys who need just the other, from a more boring business perspective. From a guitar playing perspective, would it be cool to have a pedal that did those things? Yes, indeed, it would be very cool. And I think I said this the last time as well. Typically for us here at TC, even with the amount of engineers we have at our disposal, which is probably a lot compared to a lot of pedal companies out there, especially the smaller ones. The trick for us is not coming up with ideas. We have at any given point around 50, 60 products at least that we could do. The problem is coming up with the right ones, both in terms of what's fun and cool to do, but obviously, seeing as this is also a business, stuff that we think and hope can sell and that you guys will like. So it's always, every single day is like a tough call on making sure that we do the right products. So there you go. Roletti saying, what would this world be like without coffee? It would be a horrible, horrible place, that's for sure. Justin Bradford just loaded Collins have 2 TonePrint in. Cool. I hope you like it. Colin is a good friend and a really cool guy. We had a lot of fun hanging out here at TC. So hope you like it. So we have Mateus Bonelli again. He's saying, my last wish for TC is a pitch shifter with fixed intervals for changing tuning in guitar and the mash to use as whammy expression. That would be a cool pedal. I agree. Who knows? Someday. Schneid is saying that pedal combination, I thought of surf rock. That's a, yeah. And I think that's actually a good point. One of the things, and now I'm giving away ideas. One of the things we talked about a lot is especially exactly that, actually, making products or pedals that are not multi-effect pedal per se, but a combination of effects that will give you a specific sound. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you built like the perfect Eric Johnson solo pedal, which would of course, you know, consist of, say, some sort of fuzz phase, some sort of tube driver-like circuit, a Marshall emulation overdrive, and an Echoplex style pedal. And you just have that one in one pedal with one foot switch. You'd kind of like step on it and you get that sound in a pedal. That would be kind of cool. And I can think of a lot of those. You know, there's tons of stuff like, you know, you could do Andy Summers clean sounds, or, you know, where it's one pedal with one foot switch, but with a whole, you know, plethora of different effects in there to create the sound that you typically hear one sound, but it's really comprised of, you know, say, you know, with clean stuff you could have, you know, delay, chorus, reverb, and compression going on at the same time. Oh, Bettina is watching. Shouldn't you be doing something else, Bettina?
I just saw this comment from Matt on Facebook. To whoever is responsible for Big Room with a View TonePrint. Thank you. Which one is that?
Big Room with a View is it's a Hall of Fame TonePrint.
Is it one of ours?
Yeah, it's
awesome.
That is done by Mike, I think. So basically, we have a lot of the TonePrints that we do that are TC designed are done by me, and a lot of them, it's roughly half-half, is done by Mike Nickel, who's at work today. So if Mike is watching, hey. And Mike has the amazingly important task of being the tester of all the pedals, and pretty much all our guitar products, to be honest. And he's doing an incredible job making sure that no or very few bugs kind of go through the quality control before we send products out. But on top of that, he is also a computer recording wizard and a synth nerd. So typically what happens is that all the sounds that you might find that are kind of weird and cool sounding in a new, and I haven't heard that kind of thing before, kind of way, it's typically he designed those. And the ones that are like boring old fart things, you know, that are like, you know, your classic guitar stuff, like here's a tape echo emulation, or here's like, you know, here's something that sounds like, you know, a spring reverb on a John Mayer song or whatever. That would be me. So anything that's cool, new, exciting, and innovative, that would be Mike, and everything else is me. And Mike is actually the one who designed Big Room with a View. So there you go. Let's see, what else do we have? William is saying, any new products planned for summer name? There might be. I'm not sure yet. It's a little too far out in the future for me to be entirely sure that we'll have something. The other thing, to be honest, is that we're actually not exhibiting at Summer Name this year. So announcing, I might be there just to kind of roam the halls and do some videos and talk to artists and do TonePrints and stuff. I'm not entirely sure whether I'll make it there or not, but we won't be there as a company doing having a booth and stuff. And to me, announcing something at the show and for people actually not to be able to be there and see it is a little weird. So we probably, to be honest, won't announce anything unless it just happened to be there at that exact time when the show starts. But if it's not, then we probably won't. We won't be in a rush earlier days when we were always at all the trade shows, you know, it was always, you had to show something there. So we were always kind of scrambling to get things done for the show. And it's actually kind of a relief not to have to do that anymore, because those were typically the times where you'd announce something way too early, because, you know, you had to have something there. So even though it wasn't quite ready yet for public consumption, you'd show it anyway. So it might happen, but what I can say though is that we have a ton of cool products in the pipeline over the next, well, many months. A lot of them, or pretty much all of them, but some especially, of course, that I'm really excited about. So I guess you'll just have to stay tuned. Someday something will happen, and we still have the annoying tendency to tease, so you'll probably know in advance that something cool is about to happen at least. Roletti is saying analog bucket brigade style flangers are known to sound great but have volume loss. Does the Thunderstorm flanger have a slight volume loss like the Electric Mistress? No, it doesn't. I mean, to be honest, the trick with flangers and volume loss it's not even only with flangers. To me, I always find that it's a tricky thing with any kind of pedal that has some sort of feedback loop connected to it, because once you start adding feedback, you're basically feeding the signal back into itself again, and that makes it louder. So what a lot of I think what a lot of pedal manufacturers did, especially in the older days, when you're still kind of learning what was cool and what wasn't cool, was that they would turn the feedback up almost all the way, and then they would match the volume to that because you didn't want the pedal to be too loud. And of course, what happens is that once you turn the feedback down, it then gets less loud, or you'd have a volume loss of some sort. But luckily today there's ways around that. So obviously one thing you can do is you can kind of just say, okay, so it's going to play louder when you increase the feedback, but make sure that when the feedback is all the way down, it's unity gain. Or you can do even more crazy trickery like we do on most of the TonePrint pedals, where we basically control the volume alongside the feedback. So if you turn up the feedback, we'll back down the volume a little bit to kind of match the level, which essentially is what everybody needs. There you go. I got a text here. All right. Stefan is asking, will you be at Gearfest again this year? I think last week when I did this video, I said I might, and unfortunately, I can't do it this year. I really wish I could, but it's on my daughter's birthday. So sorry. As much as guitar is important, family is more important. So I won't make it this year. But the plan is to come out to Sweetwater sometime in the autumn to show some cool stuff. But I really wish I could go, but it clashes in a horrible way. So C. Graugård is asking, thought about doing mods to existing pedals from other companies like JHS, Keeley, Analog Man? Or would that create some kind of patent issue? To be honest, I like that stuff. It's cool. I have some pedals that are done in that way. I have a screamer that's been modded by Analog Man. But I don't think it's for us. I don't think it's something that we would excel at. It's just not what we're good at, I think. We definitely have some guys here that are capable of doing it. I just think that for us as a company and what we're known for and what we strive to do is something a little different than that. Plus, to be honest, when you mod something, what you basically do is you buy the product at some sort of price, typically close to the asking price that you buy it at a store, and then you have to sell it at a much higher cost. And and with the capabilities we have, we could probably just, you know, create the pedal ourselves the way we would like it. So I don't think we would go down that route, but that doesn't mean that it's not a cool way to do things, and that there are some very valid things. I've seen guys do mods to TC pedals that I'm like, oh wow, maybe we should have even thought of that. But yeah, it's probably not for us. Let's see here. Derek is asking, any plans to release a mid to high range fuzz pedal? Maybe. We have some, I think for us in general, what we try to do, as I hope you guys sort of at least see, is that we try to make things that are a little different than everybody else. We do, like, as much as we sometimes do products that are more in that kind of, you know, traditional style, we always try to throw in something unique, whether it's, you know, whether it's the polyphonic tuning in Polytune, it's the TonePrint stuff in the TonePrint pedals, or it's the like the simplicity of Ditto Looper when it first came out. We try to make things that are unique or different in some shape or form. And the trick with drive pedals in general is the fact that, you know, people, myself included, don't like it when anybody tries to mess with stuff too much. I like my drive pedals just the way they are. So for us to do something like that would require us to come up with something cool that's different. And maybe we have something up our sleeve. I can't really say yet. We have some ideas for sure, but you will just have to. It's definitely not right around the corner. So yeah. Elam Bassist is asking, is the Spectrocomp a limiter or a sustainer? It's both. The way it's designed, the default TonePrint that's in it, it's more of a limiter. It's not a limiter in the sense that, you know, a limiter, you know, by definition basically says that, you know, I will only accept this amount of level maximum, and anything beyond that will get switched down to that point, which typically, if you set the threshold kind of a little drastic, will result in some very heavy compression. So but it is in essence, that's what we're doing, but we're using a ratio instead of infinite, which is what the limiter is. So infinite basically meaning that, you know, if let's say that this is, we'll do it like this. This is your level for the maximum amount of gain that you want to see come out of the pedal, and anything beyond that will just get squished down to this point. That's a limiter. So what we're doing is that we're saying that if this is the level that you have coming into the pedal, the maximum level you want coming out of the pedal, sorry, and anything that exceeds it will get squished by a factor. So if it's 1 to 2, that means that you will have whatever you exceed. Let's say you exceed it by 8 dB. You will be 4 dB above the threshold you set, but it's not going to squeeze all the way down. But with that said, and that's the default sound or setting. It's not 1 to 2. I think it's 1 to 8, if memory serves me correct. But the compression engine, the dynamics engine that's inside the Spectrocomp is in fact incredibly detailed and powerful. In essence, it's actually our MD3 algorithm that is also being used for high-end studio compression and mastering and limiting. That's running inside this tiny little pedal. So it's really is a 3-band compressor where you have individual controls for every single of the 3 compressors, including, you know, threshold, ratio, attack, release, knee, and EQing as well. So it's really powerful. So if you want to create something, if you feel adventurous and you want to open up the pedal and create something that's more sustainer-like or different in any sort of way, there's every single opportunity to do so. It's crazy powerful. Despite looking so simple with just the one knob, it can do so much stuff. So you can actually turn it, if you want to, you can turn it into a sustainer. You can actually also turn it into a noise gate if you want to, or a denoiser. So yeah. Alessio is asking, is there a way to store your own tone prints on the app? Right now, you can store your own tone prints on the current app for iPad. You can store your own tone prints, and you can do it on Mac and PC. And once the new version comes out, you'll be able to store it on an iPhone as well. Unfortunately, not Android yet, but yeah. We have John Mayer asking, he has a TC Helicon VoiceLive 3. That's a really cool product. And whether there are new things we'll be doing with it. To be honest, all the TC Helicon stuff is done by our sister company. I know that TC Electronic, TC Helicon, it sounds sort of the same, and there's a reason for that, because both companies are owned by the same mother company, but we're actually not the same company. The TC Helicon guys are located in Victoria, on Victoria Island, in Canada. Really cool guys, but it's a totally separate company. So whether they have plans, I'm sure they have plans for coming up with cool stuff, but I couldn't say. So there you go with that. And I know that those guys are also doing a lot of Facebook Live stuff. So, chances are if you tune in to their YouTube channel or Facebook channel, that you will get to talk to either Craig or Tom, who will both know what they're working on. Whether they'll tell you or not, I don't know. So there's been some questions about G-System and whether we'll do updates either in terms of software or new products. And I'll say the same thing I said the last time, and that is, first of all, in relation to saying if or when will come up something new, I can't really discuss that. Obviously, we're always thinking about doing new products, and we definitely have some ideas for if or when we'll be doing something new in the land of multi-effects. I realized that that we spent a lot of time in the last 10 years focusing more on single effect pedals, and I'm to blame for that. And our multi-effect range hasn't been updated in a long time. It's a lot of work to do multi-effect, because you have to make a hell of a lot of stuff. So sometimes we have a tendency to postpone it a little bit because there's a lot of other stuff we will do. But we're definitely aware that it would be nice to have something. But if or when that will happen, I can't really discuss at this point. You'll just have to wait and see if something materializes at some point in the future. The other thing is software updates to pretty much any of our existing multi-effects. I might as well be honest here and say that as much as I would like to present you guys something new there, it's very unlikely that it'll happen. And the reason is that most of these products are pretty much close to around 8-10 years old at least. And typically when you design a product, especially a multi-effect product, you make sure once you do it that there's room to, there's room on the processor in terms of, cycles. And there's also room in terms of memory and storage to contain some new stuff. So when you do a software update, you can actually do it and you can throw in some new stuff. So over the years, we've thrown a lot of cool stuff into, for example, G-System. Like the Univibe, like some cool EQ stuff and other things as well. But every time you do that, and we've done it a lot of times over the years, every time you do that, you eat up some of that excess memory and processing power that you have at your disposal. And right now, we're at a point where there simply, honestly, isn't room for anything more inside the units. The last time we did an update to G-System, that was supposed to be we wanted to throw in, I can't remember which effect it was. we threw in something. I think it was the ability to route the modulation block as a send return in the delay, so you can get modulated delays. And it was supposed to take like 3 weeks to do and release, and it ended up taking half a year, because even that tiny amount of extra code basically flooded the system with too much data, meaning that every time it started up, it started rewriting over itself and just crashing the unit. So we basically had to spend a hell of a lot of time compressing all the other code so it would fit. So in the end, it took half a year. And we knew that once we've done that, there is no room to add anything. The only thing we can do is if there is some sort of bug there, obviously, you know, we'll see if we can solve it. But I think those products have been around so long now that, you know, chances are that you find bugs are pretty rare, because typically you those are the important ones that you do fairly fast. But in terms of getting new things in there, new effects, or some of the capabilities that the newer TonePrint pedals have, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you there. We don't have room for it in any of these products. So so that's that. Sorry to be such a bummer here on a Friday. Jim Lacy, just so it's not all about TC stuff. Jim Lacy is asking, have any of the boutique pedal manufacturers come out with anything so interesting that it makes you want to buy them out or buy the technology? I don't know. What I can say is that there's definitely a lot of pedal companies, regardless of whether they're boutique or not, that come out with some cool stuff. Whether it makes me want to buy them, I don't know. I think for us, I think in terms of the engineers we have, we're pretty much capable of doing anything we want. I think it's more the good ideas, and I think lately, not that I would want to buy them. I don't even know if they're for sale or not. So it has nothing to do with that. I just think that, I don't know if you guys have seen the Empress Sawyer pedal. That's pretty damn cool. It's very nerdy. It's really hard to use in terms of just, you have to know a lot about effects, but man, it's a cool pedal. That's a fun one to do. So hats off for doing that, because I know, you know, from an engineering perspective, and as an idea, you know, that's a pretty big task to kind of to get that done. It's not something you just, you know, it's not something you just whip up in a couple of months. Must have taken years for them to do. So cool, really cool. Let's see. Hey, there's somebody called Pedal Jesus. So Pedal Jesus is asking, like Tobias's question about your favorite non-TC pedal. I suppose somebody named Tobias asked about my favorite non-TC pedal. Yes. Oh, okay, I've had that question before, and I'll probably answer it differently every time. What I can say is that in terms, not that I use it that much, but I think in terms of somebody from more of a pedal manufacturer perspective, just in terms of coming up with something really cool and different, and something that kind of changed the face of guitar, I have to say that my favorite all-time pedal is the wah pedal. It's really simple. It's so much fun to use. Pretty much every guitar player I know owns one, even if they don't like using it all that much. They typically have one. And I think that even non-guitar playing people can hear when that effect is on, which is not always the case with a lot of effects. That's very obvious to do, and it's been used in so many different ways. And just, you know, that whole idea of coming up with the treadle and controlling it, and, you know, it's just, to me, it's a perfectly designed pedal. Between, you know, the simplicity, the way you use it, how many different ways you can use it. So that would be my favorite pedal, just in terms of, if that pedal didn't exist, I would have been very proud to come up with that pedal. I think for me personally, in terms of effects, favorite effect, non-TC, I have to say that any type of fuzz phase thing, so obviously the originals, I don't have an original one, but I have quite a few different fuzz phase style pedals that I like, especially the old germanium ones. If I had to pick one effect that we don't do, because we don't do a germanium fuzz, that would be my first choice for my personal pedal board. But just in terms of overall effect, wire is definitely the coolest. Savvy is asking, do you guys use industrial designers? Yes, we do. Because we have our own. We have 2 guys working here at TC who are industrial designers. Interestingly enough, one of them, Ivar, has been with TC probably longer than anybody else in the company now. And he started out as I think he did some software. Even on the 2290, he wrote some of the software. And overall, he knows quite a lot about engineering in general, but he's also a master UI designer. And he's done a lot of stuff over the years. So 2290 was partly him. G-System is him. A lot of the stuff on Polytune, the new 2290 plugin and controller, tons of our rack stuff. And one thing you can always be certain of when you talk to Ivar about asking him to solve something or work on something is that he will, whatever you think, whatever kind of idea you had in your head as to how it would look, it's going to look entirely different, because he has an amazing ability to kind of see things on its head and kind of come up with new, cool, weird things that you wouldn't have thought of yourself, but is typically. So that's one of the guys. The other guy who's doing a lot or most of the pedal designs is Nikolai, who is also an incredible designer. And where Ivo is very much into more modern and new and crazy ways of finding things, Nikolai is more of an old school guy. He's completely into like old 50s and 60s and 70s designs. So for all the stuff we do where it looks like it's a little older or maybe a marriage between old and new, that's typically his responsibility. Plus, he's also a tattoo artist. So if you want to, if you want to get a tattoo on the side, there's always a chance you can drop by TC and he'll be ready with the needle. For examples of his work, pretty much all the TonePrint stuff, Polytune clip. If you check out Spark Mini, the hand drawing on the pedal is also something he designed. So we do have industrial designers, and they're really, really good. And the cool thing about Nikolai is the fact that he's also a mechanic designer, so he can actually double as the guy who actually makes all the stuff fit. It's not just making it pretty, it's actually also making sure that you can manufacture and that everything sits right together and stuff like that. And typically, I work together with one of those 2 guys. When we come up with new products, that's the first guys I'll go to, and we'll see if we can come up with some drawings, concept drawings of how it's going to look. So yes, we do. What else do we have? Roulette is asking, are the guitars at the headquarters from people working there or the companies? It's the companies. I think there's a few guys who have some guitars lying around, but most of the guitars we have here are owned by TC. So we have 4 of these Hansen branded guitars, which we basically commissioned from the Hansen company. They make great guitars, and we wanted something that was obviously great sounding, but also something that kind of fulfilled like your typical kind of types of guitars. So we have 2 Strat types. You might have seen another one that's kind of like a blonde, worn white kind of Strat with a rosewood fingerboard. Then we have a Tele style guitar, and we have a sort of a weird mixture between a Tele and a Les Paul. So basically it's the body shape of a Tele, but it kind of looks like a Les Paul. So 2 humbuckers, mahogany body with a maple, flame maple top, and all the trimmings. So it's a little bit of both, but it sounds more like a Les Paul than a Tele. And then we have tons of other guitars lying around. Some really nice ones. We have a couple of cool acoustics, and a lot of cheaper ones. So basically, all the engineers at TC working on guitar stuff have a guitar. So there's like 40 guitars around here. If you kind of roam the halls, there's enough guitars here. And there's actually, incidentally, also the very first guitar that was used sitting right over there. That was used by the original founder of TC, Kim, who used that guitar to create the stereo chorus Flanger on. There you go. So my laptop is running out of energy soon, and we've been at it for almost an hour, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to call it quits. I really, all of us here at TC appreciate the fact that you guys want to spend time tuning into this and asking all these really cool questions. And I apologize that we can't answer all of them. I think when we originally started doing this, we kind of said that we would see if we could answer all of them afterwards, but it's impossible. So in advance, sorry if your question wasn't answered. If you tune in next week, maybe if you type in all caps, something like that, we'll try our best. And as I said last time, we'll try to see if we can do this every single week. Our idea is actually do it on Thursdays, which I think is the plan going forward. But yesterday was a national holiday in Denmark, so we couldn't do it. But apart from that, just want to say have a lovely, great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.